I don't know about you, but for me, one of the worst things is the feeling of being lied to. When you feel like you know who a person is, they've presented themselves to be one way, and then you find out that they were lying. That's the way that I felt about Susan Yara back in 2020 when she announced that she was the founder of the skincare brand Naturium. And you may be wondering, if you don't know the story, why would that be a scandal? Why would that be a problem? And the problem is that Susan had been promoting Naturium as if she had no connection with the brand at all, promoting discount codes, talking about how amazing the products were, saying they were better than the ordinary, just touting them on both her Facebook group and her YouTube channel without disclosing that she had any kind of relationship with the brand. And as a Susan Yara fan at the time, I was super disappointed that this happened because I thought I knew who Susan was. I thought she was an honest reviewer. I thought she was somebody that I could trust. And I found out that maybe I couldn't trust her because in that lack of disclosure, Susan broke FTC guidelines. The Federal Trade Commission is here in the US to protect consumers against deceptive practices for brands, and it looked like Susan had broken those rules because the FTC says you must disclose any relationship with the brand, whether you get PR, whether you're financially invested, or even if you just have a personal or family connection, that must be disclosed. Susan did not do that. And I was not the only person that was disappointed in this. This actually deterred quite a few people from ever buying from Naturium. At this point, Naturium has shown fantastic success. They've been sold to e.l.f. Cosmetics for $355 million. They're doing amazing despite this early scandal. What happened this past week was strange. Susan decided she was going to create a podcast episode about what happened back in 2020. She invited a friend so she could just bounce things off of, but really she wanted to tell the story from her point of view, what had happened back in 2020 when she had been canceled. And as a person who had made a video that got quite a few views talking about this and brought a lot of visibility to the situation, I thought it would be interesting to take this piece out of my regular news show of What's Been Makeup and do a deep dive similar to when I talked about Jaclyn Hill being on podcasts talking about rewriting history with what happened with her hairy lipsticks, similar to when I talked about Tati Westbrook going on Michelle Phan's podcast talking about Dramageddon 2 and what happened there and some very personal things that she hadn't shared yet. So the question today is she going to take the Jaclyn Hill route where she's going to try to rewrite history, or is she going to take the Tati route and add additional information and context so that people can understand the situation better and maybe not be as hard on her about it? I happen to have the timeline and all of the deleted videos, so we're going to look at it together and decide for ourselves. Hang tight. We're getting into it right now. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to my channel. If you have been here before, hello, welcome back. If you are new here, hi, welcome to my channel. You have stumbled upon a channel called JENLUV, and on this channel, we talk makeup news, things that are happening currently in the industry. In my weekly news show called What's Been Makeup, it goes live on Sundays and Mondays. This video is an offshoot of that video. That's why it's going live on Sunday, but I also do deep dives into things that have happened in the past in our community, kind of bring visibility and make sure that we remember the facts of a situation, what happened in that situation, what was the timeline, what do we know about a situation so that we can make decisions as educated consumers, as educated viewers of content, then decide whether we want to continue watching or supporting a brand, and maybe even just make an opinion for ourselves based on the facts presented. So that's what we're going to be doing today as far as Susan Yara goes. I do want to give a quick shout out. My shirt was purchased for me by the lovely Amira Muhammad. I will link her channel down below. Thank you, Amira. I love my sweatshirt. And also, I'm going to take inspiration from Hope Mess Tom, and I am going to remove this microphone from my stand, and I'm going to hold it like a microphone because it feels good to do that. If you've never seen Hope Mess Tom's Critical Sass videos, they are freaking amazing, and they look a little something like this. But I love the vibe. I love the vibe of holding the microphone, so that's what we're doing today. I do want to let you know that I did reach out to Susan. She did respond to me once and answered one out of my 2 questions. I did send some follow-up questions and have not heard back as of the time of filming. So there may be some editing gens in here. If there are not, that means that Susan did not get back to me before this went live on Sunday. If she ever responds, I will put it in a pinned post what she told me. So make sure you look down there for the most complete information. Again, if there's nothing there, it means she didn't get back to me. So let's get into this podcast. I am not going to play the entire video because it's almost an hour long, but I am going to play you about 30 minutes of relevant footage. If you would like to watch the entire thing, link will be down below. We're going to start the video right after the teaser opener for the podcast, right when the podcast actually starts.
We can't talk about my life online without addressing something that happened to me online in 2020, and that's that I got canceled. If you're not familiar with the situation, people were rightfully angry with me because they were told that I had been promoting my brand without disclosing that I was the owner of it. But they didn't have that context that was the background story of it and how this came to be. And that was my fault because I didn't share it. When I look back on the situation, there were definitely things I could have done better, but it was a tough situation to navigate. And I really don't think I had the tools or the ability or even the mental capacity to truly navigate it. So instead, what I did was shut down and just focus on my work. And I never told the story.
At this point, I do want to let you know that before I released my original video talking about this situation, I did reach out to Susan twice. She gave me zero information to help me with the piece, but I did give her that opportunity. I'll show you the screenshots on the screen of me trying to reach out to her. I said to her, "Hi, Susan, I'm currently working on a video regarding your launch of Naturium and how you chose to go about it," because I already had issues with it. If there is a statement that you'd like to include beyond what you stated in your launch video, please let me know. Now, she did respond to that about 15 minutes later. This is through Instagram DM. She said, "Thanks for letting me know and giving me an opportunity to respond. I'll get back to you on this in just a bit." I liked the message, didn't hear anything until after she uploaded her apology video later that day. I sent her a follow-up message after the apology video went live, and I said I had just watched it and would be including clips from that video and to let me know if there was anything that she wanted to add. She responded, "Okay, thanks for letting me know." Now, I did create that video and she watched it and sent me a DM after watching it. She says, "Hi, Jen, I just watched your video. Again, I appreciate that you reached out to see if I had anything to add. The courtesy means a lot. Your theories were interesting and actually helped me understand what people might also be theorizing. While it's not correct, it gives me a lot of perspective." So I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, so what wasn't correct? Are you going to tell me what I didn't get correct or no? I will tell you, there was some skincare information in there about like encapsulated products and different things. I really didn't know what I was talking about. I thought I knew what I was talking about, but I got it wrong. So that was wrong, I will admit. But I do think that I got the timeline right. And I do think I got her actions right. But she said that I had gotten it wrong. So I was hoping she would then tell me what I got wrong. So I responded, "Thanks for your feedback, and I'm glad that you found it helpful. If there is ever a message that you'd like me to tell my audience, feel free to let me know." She liked the post. Never responded. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I was right then. Because if I was truly wrong and she wanted me to correct the record, why wouldn't she tell me? I think that's what this video is now, is her trying to explain. But I think this is just a theory. I think maybe she knew I was still going to call her out on the bullshit. So maybe that's why she never responded, because this video is going to be calling her out on her bullshit. I'm just letting you know. That's what's coming. So here we go. Let's get into the podcast.
So for the very first time, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of background, and I want to throw out there, I am summarizing. So before you get into the comments and you start saying, "Well, she forgot to address this, but what about this that happened? Or what about this thing that you said?" Yes, to all of it. There is so much more to it. And we can probably get more into the nitty-gritty of it one of these days if people are interested in it.
You don't know somebody's motivations because you don't know what is in their mind. You really don't. But for me, this seems like a cover my ass kind of moment. That's what it feels like, that she knows that people are going to pick this apart so she can fall back on, "I told you I wasn't going to tell you all the little details, and this is part of that." So like I mentioned in the intro, I did reach out to Susan to ask some clarifying questions because I want to know those details, because things just don't match up. But more on that later. Let's get back in.
But for this episode, I decided to bring on a friend for moral support, and that is Kirbie Johnson. She is a beauty reporter, she is a host, and she's also the co-host of Los Angeles, which is a really great beauty podcast.
I am not familiar with Kirbie. I've never seen her podcast. I literally have never seen this woman before I've seen her here. So this is my only impression of who she is as a person. And I will tell you, not a fan because of a couple of things that she says in the podcast. Don't think she's my people, which is totally fine. Not everybody's going to be my people, but she says some things that are really, in my opinion, problematic. But we'll get there. We're going to skip ahead a little bit because they do some introductions and then they talk about how they met.
Kirbie and I feel like you and I have like a lot of integrity and we really like, it's a big deal. You know what I'm going to talk about? It's a big deal. We have a lot of integrity. I did not tell Kirbie this was the main reason why I brought her on.
I'm dying. I am dying.
We have a lot of integrity. At least we think we do, right? Maybe sometimes we think we have like a really like much higher moral compass than a lot of people.
We think we're on the ground journalists, like, you know, excavating
but we really
very deep things.
Yes.
It's like, it's just beauty and
we're very
internet
passionate.
stuff.
Like we're very passionate about doing things the right way.
Yes.
And there was a time on Instagram where there were so many of our, I guess, do we call them colleagues, our mutuals?
Yeah, mutuals.
Where it was so easy for them to buy fake followers.
At that time, people were buying their followers in mass. Hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
Where it did not compute. And
not with their engagement, their number of likes, the number of comments. And then they realized people were getting savvy to them. And then they would buy fake comments. Like it was such a strange time in social media. We bonded over this because we could not stand it.
Again, I don't know what's in their head. I don't know for sure. But what this feels like is a setup. Look how honest I am. Look, honesty is important to me. Transparency is important to me. I wouldn't lie to you. Like, why would you tell? I guess it's context for how they became friends, but still, I think it's a weird setup because it almost is like admitting guilt before you actually say anything. But that's, again, just me through my eyes. I don't know if that's actually real. They talk about this for a little bit, so I'm going to skip it and we'll move on from there.
I think once you get, it's truly like that situation, you learn that when you are finally succeeding yourself, you don't have the time to worry about everybody else and what they're doing. But there was absolutely a moment where I was feeling very upset.
Same.
Very, very upset.
Many eons ago.
Many eons ago. And look at us now.
If you want to buy followers, that's your problem.
Exactly.
Maybe I'm reading too much into this. But this is the first time that Kirbie's pissing me off. This is, to me, kind of like when you're successful, it doesn't matter about the problematic things that happen in the industry. That's what this says to me. If you're successful, it doesn't matter what other people do because it doesn't affect you. And that's an issue for me, especially coming from a journalist and somebody that is deep in the skincare industry. She doesn't own Naturium anymore, but still, like, this is not cute at all. It's like things only matter if they affect you. What? For real? I guess that that's what I hear when I hear this. All right, let's keep going.
At the time, it felt like a cancellation. I would not wish a cancellation, quote unquote, on anybody. At the time, though, I will say it did feel like that's what was happening. I mean, I remember.
For me.
Yes, for you, Susan. I remember being scared, going, okay, this is my friend and I care about her. But did she just royally fuck something up?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Now that I've gone through what I've gone through, I definitely would not wish that on anybody because people are ruthless. And I will caveat and throw out there, I think that people do need to be held accountable for certain things who absolutely need to be like removed. Like they should not have a platform.
That goes without saying. And unfortunately, you have to say that because of cancel culture.
Yeah.
I have an issue with this part too, and let me explain why. Having been through the canceled fire myself, I see this completely differently. Personally, I feel like typically, when somebody is quote unquote canceled, it's because they've said something or done something that a lot of people find problematic. And I feel like this is an opportunity for the person who's being canceled to hear another perspective. outside of their own perspective, to at least consider it and think about, well, maybe something that I'm saying is inconsiderate. Maybe something that I'm saying is not part of my personal experience, but affects people outside of my personal experience. And it's something to consider. And it's an opportunity for the cancelee to learn and grow from the situation. It's not about just slamming somebody for no reason. At least it shouldn't be. Occasionally, we get it wrong. But when someone's truly being held accountable for their actions, that's the point, is to give the person an opportunity to learn and grow and change, which I think is a really good thing. Do I agree with any viciousness that goes along with canceling somebody? No, absolutely not. But I do agree with the motive behind it of saying, hey, stop for a second. What you're doing or saying is hurtful. Let's talk about that. Let's make sure you understand what's going on and what you did. That I have zero issues with. And that's what happened to Susan. Let's be honest. That's what happened to Susan. So the question is at this point, did Susan learn and grow from the situation? Did she take the feedback and go, oh crap, maybe I need to do something differently? Or does she see nothing wrong with her actions? That's what we're exploring today. I also want to mention is something that doesn't happen all the time is when somebody has been canceled, they have taken that opportunity to learn and grow and change and add that into who they are as a person, being a better person. And sometimes the internet just does not care that that person has learned and grown and changed, which I feel like is something that needs to be considered as well. So if Susan presents in this video that she has learned and grown and changed, and she understands what went wrong, then absolutely, we should all be moving on. And that was actually how I came into this video, was hoping that Susan had understood what had gone wrong and had learned from that experience, and that was what this video was going to be about. Some people say I'm a little too optimistic. I think I am. I think I'm a little too optimistic. Let's keep going.
It's amazing how people can take something from the internet, say it, and there are people that will believe it without ever confirming it.
The benefit of the doubt is gone.
Yeah.
People are just, they take everything at face value. If you said it, then you meant it in a certain way.
Yeah.
Now, this part I 100% agree with, because we actually just talked about this a couple weeks ago, in that we don't want to hold someone accountable for something they legit did not do. So, like, for example, we talked about James Charles, who I did a full series on everything that man has done wrong. And it's a lot of things, some trivial stuff, some very serious things. Lots of stuff going on with James Charles. But he was accused of having mold in his blushes from his brand Painted. And what we learned when we looked at it, and we looked at science, was that there was probably a 0% chance that this was mold in his blushes, but yet he was getting backlash for it. People were trying to cancel him over it. And it's like, no, we really need to make sure that if we're holding someone accountable, if we are canceling them, that it is for something they actually did and not because of something that is off base or not true or not real. So totally agree with this.
So let's just go ahead and get into my story, some context, because I think that there has, for years now, since 2020, there has been a lot of context missing as to what happened with me. I'm making it short because we don't have 3 hours to really get into the details here. Yeah. I'm just trying to provide some context. I'm not saying that I wasn't in the wrong, because I'm a human being. When I feel like people are attacking me, just like any other human, your reaction isn't to be like, oh, you know what, let me sit down and think about what they might be going through. Instead, you're like, if you think you're not in the wrong, you kind of go, you get in the defense, you go onto the defensive, right? Yep. You're just like, well, let me show you. And if anything, I'm the kind of person that's going to taunt you.
Like I mentioned earlier, I went into this video thinking that I was probably going to have to correct quite a bit of what we knew back when I created my video in 2020. That's what I was going in with. And that's not what happened. Let's keep going. We're almost there.
So in 2020, when I announced my brand, people were really upset because they felt like I hadn't disclosed it was my brand, because I had mentioned it like not even a handful of times, like 3-4 times, twice, I think, in my Facebook group. I'm like summarizing again. So, we can go back, correct me if I'm wrong. But it was like 2 or 3 times in my Facebook group, and then a couple of times in video. And that's about it. I mentioned it the way I mention any brand that I'm excited about.
Right.
Announced my ownership of the brand. And there was a subset of people that were very upset about it. It created a bunch of chaos. It made everybody upset. And for a second there, I thought my career was over.
Yeah.
Here's my video title. Hi, that's my video title. It almost sounds like she was trying to say that the media, that all the press was trying to end her career. And I just want to say from my perspective, that's not true. So I'm going to just play the end of my video from 2020.
But let's keep this in perspective. Is this the worst thing that any influencer has ever done? No, far, 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 far from it. But will I trust product recommendations from Susan Yara in the near future? Absolutely not.
Whole intention of that video, whole intention of this video is to give you information so you can decide what you want to do with it. That's it.
I texted some of my friends in the industry, one of them being Kirbie Johnson, who is my integrity buddy and probably feels a lot of the way that I feel about a lot of things happening in our industry.
Yeah.
And I texted you. I texted you something along the lines of, did you see what's happening? What are your thoughts? And what did you say to me?
I said, you need to get a good attorney.
That's all she said.
I said, you need to get a good attorney. But, okay, so some of you might be thinking, wow, you're a shitty friend.
She didn't say, I'm so sorry that you're going through this. She was like, bitch, get an attorney.
Is it wrong to think that that sounds like a really good friend? I mean, she could have been like, hey, are you okay first? That would have been the nice thing to do. Like, are you all right? But then get a good lawyer, because if she did break the law, if she did break FTC rules, then a lawyer would be helpful to her. The only thing is I think that we've learned at this point that the FTC doesn't really follow up on stuff like this. So the chances of them actually going after her was probably pretty slim. But I don't feel like that's an off-base thing to suggest. Again, we're going to skip ahead a little bit, but basically she's talking about how out of control people got with the criticism for this. Things like people telling her she needs to have her kids taken away, you know, people that saying that she needs to go to jail. And it's like, no, absolutely not. I 100% agree. That's over the top. It's unnecessary. Absolutely. She also sets the stage of the time period at the time and talking about how in June of 2020, we were all just kind of realizing that the lockdown wasn't going to last just a couple of weeks and that this was going to be a much longer experience. We were also in the throes of social justice and people were just fed up with the status quo and that, you know, in general, people were out for blood. And it was a different time during that period of time. It was the time when a lot of brands and people were getting canceled. And I think she might be alluding to that if this scandal happened today, that maybe things would have gone differently. I don't think so, but that's what it feels like she's alluding to here. The other thing she mentions, which I think is really interesting, is that she said that her video had actually just recently started taking off. And I know she was over 1 million subscribers on mixed makeup before all of this happened, but you know, she didn't really understand her impact and all that. I don't know if I believe that because I feel like she had hundreds of thousands of followers before 2019. Maybe I'm misremembering it because Social Blade, which is where I usually look this stuff up, it only goes back 2 years, so I don't know. But I feel like she was really popular before that, so I don't know if I buy that she didn't understand her impact. Plus, she's an intelligent person. I don't know if I buy that. That's just me. She also adds a note about rich people and how she feels like people don't give rich people the benefit of the doubt because, you know, oh, poor rich person, all of that. And she stresses that at the time she was doing okay, but she wasn't rich. I guess because she's rich now with that $355 million from e.l.f. I'm sure she didn't get all of that $355 million, but the woman is wealthy now. If she wasn't then, she is now. And then the next story that I'm skipping over is when she talks about a skincare line that she was developing before Naturium and how all of that went bad, that she invested all this money in the trademark and she was going to do the image and all that. Trademark is expensive. It's mostly the lawyer that's expensive when you do trademark. Her point in talking about this seems to be her trying to say that her community, like people that knew her really well and really followed her closely, should have known she was working on a skincare line, but personally, I feel like that's completely irrelevant. Anything having to do with this other skincare line is irrelevant to breaking FTC regulations with Naturium. It's not even, it's relevant adjacent, I guess we could say, but not really relevant.
But in February of 2020, I get this email from the person that I was working with that's helping me put my brand together. she was the person like in contact with our contract manufacturer in Korea.
Okay.
And essentially what happened was this contract manufacturer was like, there's this virus going around. Don't know if you've heard about it. It's in the news. I think in February of 2020, we were all aware that there was something weird happening with the virus, with COVID. And they basically just put a stop to it. In just an email, it was like, this is over. If you want to pivot and launch hand sanitizer for your brand, we're in. Otherwise, we have to put a stop for all new clientele. And it was crushing because I didn't know what to do.
Right.
I sat there and I was like, wow, that was a lot of time and money wasted. And that could just be over in an email.
So I will admit I know nothing about contract manufacturing. I've never done contract manufacturing. I don't know anything about it. But to me, it sounded like in the beginning of this that she was putting all of her own money into it. But if this contract manufacturer was not financially invested and Susan was paying them, I don't see why they would have the power to stop her brand from continuing. You know what I mean? Like that sounds like money to me. That sounds like an investor to me that would then say, hey, this is not going to be a good investment. Let's invest in hand sanitizer instead. That makes sense to me. But that doesn't make sense if they were just in the business of taking Susan's money and doing what Susan said with her money. That it doesn't make sense that they could do that. Again, I don't know anything about contract manufacturing. This is one of the questions that I asked Susan, and I haven't heard back from her yet about exactly how all of this works. I tried to Google it, but I couldn't really find much.
So immediately, I start contacting every single person I know in this industry who works behind the scenes of brands.
Right.
Everybody. And in the midst of that, probably in like March at this point, I get in contact with the man who would become my business partner and investor. Okay. And I literally sent him, we were a week or two into lockdown, I want to say at this point. I had received in PR, and I'd been loving the brand that he had started.
Okay.
Which would eventually become my brand.
Okay.
And I was obsessed. So I get in touch with him because I had questions on how, like, where is he having this made? Why is it such high quality? And how do you have such a good price point?
Right.
Because even when I was working on my own thing, I just couldn't get it to that price point. It was just not going to happen. And so I wanted answers. And then I also wanted to then ask him to invest in my brand.
Yeah. I want your money.
Yeah, I want your money.
All right. This is when we're getting into the nitty gritty. This is when we find that timeline. And she kind of mocks the timeline later on in the podcast. But this timeline is really important because all of the stuff that went down with Naturium happens between February and June of 2020. It's just a few months. So what happens in what month is important to determine what the reality was. And this is where we're going to find out which direction Susan is going in this podcast. Is she going the Jacqueline route and trying to rewrite history, or is she going the Tati route and just adding information so people can have a better perspective of what was going on?
It had launched as a soft launch on Amazon with just a few products on Amazon, so they could just test the concept, see if it's working.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And I want to say it was February of 2020 where they really truly launched it. Where
Okay.
they decided to start some sponsorships, send it out to influencers. I was one of those people that got it, February 2020. I also had prior relationship with this person, with my former investor and business partner. So I already respected him. So I just, I'm giving him advice on this brand.
It was at this moment that she messed up. This is when Susan outright admits that she broke FTC rules because the FTC is very clear in their guidelines. This is the quote from the FTC pamphlet for influencers specifically. If you endorse a product through social media, your endorsement message should make it obvious when you have a relationship, material connection with the brand. A material connection to the brand includes personal, family, or employment relationship, or a financial relationship such as the brand paying you or giving you free or discounted products and services. Telling your followers about these kinds of relationships is important because it helps keep your recommendations honest and truthful, and it allows people to weigh the value of your endorsements. She says that she had a personal relationship with Ben in mid-March. This is when she says she started advising him on the products for Naturium. Naturium. But honestly, I'm not sure about that because of some conflicting things later. It's possible she was advising him even before the launch in February. It's possible, but I'll tell you why in a minute. The point is that Susan had a relationship with Naturium that was personal. She had a relationship with the brand that was different than just somebody sending her something in the mail and then her reviewing it or talking about it in her Facebook group, promoting a discount code. This was a personal connection that she had with Naturium and the brand owner. And the FTC says that that needs to be disclosed. Period. Full stop.
Fast forward, I had no idea that I was going to ever own this brand.
Right.
At this point, right? Mm-hmm. Fast forward to April, probably like end of April. And he says to me, now we know we're in lockdown. And now having a brand new D2C brand sounds like a terrible idea. So he says to me, you've already helped shape this brand. Like we've already started making changes according to what you've told us, what you've shown us. He's like, I feel like this brand is starting to take on a true, like it's starting to shape, like you're shaping it. Instead of working on two separate brands that are essentially conceptually like the same, why don't we just work on this one brand together?
So now we're in April, and Susan has been talking with the owner of Naturium since mid-March. She started promoting Naturium to her Facebook group in mid-April, so about a month after she started this personal connection, this deeper connection with Ben. At this point, she had already pitched him her brand idea and was kind of courting him to try to get him to invest in her own personal brand. So it was in her best interest to set Naturium up with her subscribers and get them to purchase it. This ulterior motive to promoting Naturium is what needed to be disclosed. It didn't have to be specific. She didn't have to say, you know what, I'm trying to get this guy to invest in my brand, so can you please buy this? She didn't have to say that. But she needed to say, I have a personal connection with this brand, or Ben is my friend, or something like that, but she didn't. So this is one of the posts from the Facebook group that was in my video that I launched in 2020. This is what it says. This is directly from Susan to her personal Facebook group. Fan of the ordinary? I found a better brand called Naturium. Does that sound like somebody that has a personal connection to the brand? I don't think so. Let us continue. Not cheap, but still really affordable, and the formulas are superior. One of my biggest issues with the Ordinary products is the feel and texture. The products are always sticky, greasy, or heavy. The Naturium products have higher quality ingredients and feel nicer on the skin. I think they have a lot of really good dupes too. Biossance squalane, drunk elephant marula oil, high percentage niacinamide and vitamin C serums, encapsulated retinol, etc. I just want you guys to use better products. Don't fight me. Ha ha. Here's the edit she added. I got a discount from the brand. Use code Susan25 for 25% off any 2 items until April 24th. This post is the opposite of disclosure. This is the anti-disclosure. I feel like this almost is heavy-handed in the specific non-disclosure. Like the lines like, I found a better brand called Naturium, and I just want you guys to use better products. Don't fight me. Why would they fight her? It's almost like she's trying to like cover her butt, like she knows that she's doing something wrong, but she's doing it anyway, and she's kind of trying to, I don't know, smooth it over somehow, even though there's no way that her Facebook group would know that this was happening. It just reads really weird in hindsight. So in case you're wondering what I think would have been a better way to say this, instead of saying, I found a brand, she could say, my friend Ben just launched a new brand called Naturium, and I'm absolutely loving it. And then all of the things that she said about, why she likes it and all of that. If she was helping with the formulas at this time, which is possible, then that should have been disclosed too. I even helped him decide on some of the formulas. Isn't that exciting? And also making sure that she says that she did receive the product in PR. That would have covered her butt. There would not have been any issue. And I don't think her Facebook group would have hated that. Actually, I think they probably would have loved it because they probably would have wanted to buy anything that she personally had a hand in because these are Susan's fans. After the original post, a group member did ask her how she found the brand, and this is the time that she discloses that she got it in PR. Only then. So you had to scroll past the original post to the comments and read them in order to find that she received the product in PR.
I was constantly talking to him every day, every minute, late into the night, sharing ideas. Because in a lot of ways, there was this like creative inspiration that came from being in lockdown, at least for me. Maybe other people have other experiences, but for me and for him, it clicked. And so he's like, you know what? Your brand. Let's do this. And this was like I thought about it just for like a night. Next day, I told him, let's do this. Let's do this.
If there was any question that in March of 2020, Susan had more than a typical relationship with Naturium, this is it. This is it. She's talking to him all the time. This is not a typical relationship between an influencer and a brand. This is a personal relationship that needed to be disclosed.
And here's where it always blows my mind. People who, like they thought they were being like sleuths, like they thought they were being investigative. I remember
something about this time that.
Yeah. People like really thought that they were doing some good investigation, but they were not, because if they'd looked closely, they would have found my trademark applications for the other brand that had happened in 2019. And for people that are watching this, you get to see screenshots of proof of those trademarks that were filed. They were denied.
Not 100% sure what she's talking about here, but I do think that she's probably talking about people that had left her Facebook group and joined a rogue Facebook group that she says was specifically trying to take her down. She goes into a lot of detail about that we're going to skip because it's plot adjacent. So we're not really going to go into that, but I think that might be who she's talking about here. But again, the trademarks that she's saying, well, if you had really known me, if you had really known who I am, if you had really done your research, you sleuths, you would have found my trademark. 100% irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Like, legit. There's no relevance here. I don't understand why she thinks this is relevant. The only thing I can think of is this is kind of a red herring situation to throw Susan Yara fans off and to make them go, yeah, you're right. They didn't know what they were talking about. They didn't mention your old brand. It literally doesn't matter. It's completely irrelevant.
Had they also looked closely, they would have seen, and I remember there was a Beauty Independent article that came out about me.
Yes.
Where,
well, it was after there was a big celebratory story.
I know.
So there was a big celebratory story.
I'll give some context around that too.
Okay.
They do a second follow-up story because they realize like, oh wait, the real story, the clickbaity story was the other story.
Right.
That like was my cancellation. Right. So they
With a timeline.
They put a timeline.
With a timeline.
And
I remember this.
If you're watching,
vividly.
you get a screenshot of this timeline. They had a timeline where they show, and I don't know why this didn't seem interesting enough for people, because I just assume people don't want to look deeper because it's not as interesting, right? If it kills the story, then it's not as interesting. So even for journalists, like supposed journalists, right? They actually have a timeline where you can tell there is a hole in the time I started talking about the brand.
Yep.
And the time that I announced the brand, there is a hole. What do people think was happening in that hole when I stopped talking about the brand?
What's funny is as they're criticizing this timeline, I actually talked about the timeline in my video and what is in the hole. So I'm actually going to just replay that part of my video because it's easier than trying to recreate it.
I personally believe she stopped posting her own YouTube videos in mid-April because influencers were beginning to receive their PR packages and sponsorship offers around that time in April and early May, making them the mouthpieces for the brand. Susan says that she planned on telling people it was her brand shortly after launch in February.
So we launched in February of 2020, and I was planning to tell you guys pretty soon after that I was the person behind Naturium. And then you guys know what happened in March. Everything kind of changed.
But if she thought she needed to keep it secret until influencers could weigh in,
I needed to know that my friends in this industry actually love this brand without me influencing that on them.
That would mean she would have to wait until their reviews came out, leading us to early June when Susan claims in her apology video that she started fearing information of her involvement would be leaked.
And this is where we see the months having issues, because she says here that in February, so this would have been the month before March, which is when in the podcast she says that she contacted Ben for a potential investment. She says in February, she was going to tell people that she was the face behind Naturium.
So we launched in February of 2020, and I was planning to tell you guys pretty soon after that I was the person behind Naturium. And then you guys know what happened in March. Everything kind of changed.
But then the pandemic hit in March, and that's the only reason why she didn't say anything in February.
Probably in like March at this point. I get in contact with the man who would become my business partner and investor. Okay. And I literally sent him, we were a week or two into lockdown, I want to say at this point. I had received in PR, and I'd been loving the brand that he had started.
See what I'm saying about the discrepancies here? And something's wrong. The months are not monthing here. So speaking of the founder thing, here's the next clip.
I realize I've been offered a brand to work on it. I realize I now cannot talk about this brand anymore until I announce my association with this brand. And I am now working with my soon-to-be business partner and investor on how we are going to figure out our agreement, because this is a brand that exists already. This is not an easy agreement with our attorneys.
And people, I think that actually is a good point. People don't understand that you can retroactively almost become a founder of a company.
I mean, the brand was just a few months old.
I will tell you that this is true. I did not know this when I filmed my original video, that you could become a founder after the brand launched. I actually learned this when we were talking about in beginning of 2024, the first celebrity brand launch was Pamela Anderson's Sansi Beauty, which she was the founder of. But Sansi already existed when Pamela bought the brand and then called herself the founder. So that's when I learned that retroactively you could become a founder. So I know that this is true. This is real. And this was a mistake that I had made because I didn't know that. Again, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because this is when she talks about the rogue Facebook group and why that motivated her to talk about that she was connected to Naturium in June rather than when she wanted to talk about it.
It's like June, early June, and my business partner and I finally have come to an agreement between our attorneys. It's not finished, like it's not in writing or anything like that, but like we have basically agreed, and now it just has to be signed on the dotted line, and I'm going to be the co-founder of this brand, and it's going to be mine. Right.
Again, the full hour-long video is going to be linked down below if you want to hear that story. Now, this is good context too, because what was happening in April and May was that the influencers who had gotten the PR were releasing their videos. Some of them had affiliate links, some of them didn't have affiliate links, but this was when the influencer videos started coming out. So it makes sense that during this time, the lawyers were trying to sort out how Naturium was going to change hands, how Susan was going to be the official founder. It makes perfect sense. So back to the influencers. These were the influencers that Susan said in her launch video that she specifically didn't tell them that it was her brand because she didn't want to have a biased review. She wanted them to review the products as if they didn't know the founder.
I needed to know that my friends in this industry actually love this brand without me influencing that on them.
But this timeline, this isn't, the months aren't monthing here either. But she talks about that in a second. So let's pause that for a minute and we're going to keep going a little bit because she's going to finish talking about the story about the rogue Facebook group. Honestly, again, it doesn't matter necessarily when she became a founder, whether it was in March or April or May or June. Like it really doesn't matter. What matters is that she did have a personal relationship with the brand that needed to be disclosed.
She's the founder.
Yep.
And she's saying that she didn't sign on the dotted line until June, but the brand initially launched in, 2019. And then she had put these discount codes in the mixed makeup Facebook
And by the way,
group.
in one of those Facebook, I think like the second post I put, I had then started talking to my soon-to-be business partner. And I say at the bottom, I'm discussing partnership opportunities with this brand, so more coming soon. I didn't know even then I was going to be an owner, but I'm already like thinking.
You're still like disclosing.
I'm disclosing a little something because we've like opened up a conversation about money. And so I'm like, I always feel like I've been pretty open with my followers about when I'm getting anything from this, you know?
Susan is leaving out a big piece here, and it was really what causes all the discrepancies, which is what she said in her launch video when she said that Naturium was her brand in June. Again, I'm just going to play the clip from my video from 2020, just so you know, the white shirt, when Susan's in the white shirt, that is the launch video. And then when she's in the red shirt, that's the apology video that she launched 4 days later.
So let me tell you a little bit about the last few months. We officially launched in February, and it was really important to me to get honest and true feedback from everyone. And I took a step back and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna get that if I just announce that this is my skincare line from the get-go.
If you know this whole story, I think I know what you're thinking. What about her apology video that she put out a few days after her launch video, where she says that she just became an official co-founder a couple of weeks ago? Let's let Susan talk about that.
Over the last few days of self-reflection and talking to friends, I realized that context was really necessary in this conversation. Up until a couple of weeks ago, I hadn't become the formal partner and the formal co-founder of Naturium. I signed my formal agreement, just a couple weeks ago. You might have noticed a little bit of buzz about my brand over the last couple of months. I want to tell you a little bit more about it. The most important thing about this brand is that I wanted to make sure all of the ingredients are really, truly effective ingredients. But really, this is a brand that all of you have been asking for. I have been paying attention to all of the things that you've been asking for over the last couple of years. I signed my formal agreement, just a couple weeks ago. And I'm really focused on trying to make the brand more sustainable. We've done a really good job of making sure these are the best products that you can get.
So many questions about this. I have so many questions, but at the end of this video, I'm gonna tell you really what I think the true timeline is based on everything that I know. So hang tight for that.
This is probably what made me feel the worst in this whole situation. I go to my friends in the industry, my other social media friends, and I don't even give them context. I don't tell them what's happening because I can't imagine how big this is going to be, right?
Right.
And I filmed this so quick, get them on Zoom, announce to them that this is my brand, and they're shocked. They're like, what? They had gotten the brand around the same. I think I was one of the earlier people to get it, but they got it soon after. And everyone's like starting to talk about, I had started talking about the brand. They start talking about the brand. I think actually this is why people think I talked about the brand so much, is because I talked about the brand, but then everybody else started talking about the brand.
So this is where she's talking about the influencers. And this is where I'm still a little bit confused because, so in February, she gets her PR, right? And then she says that the influencer friends got it shortly after that. On the podcast, she says she doesn't start talking to Ben as more of a business like relationship, trying to get him to sign on to invest in her brand. That happens in mid-March. So according to this, the PR should have been sent out before that, and that Ben probably made that decision to pick whatever influencers were going to get the PR. And that, could be true because the people who did get PR were the top skincare influencers in the game at the time. I mean, it was, if you know the space, these are the influencers you would want to have your product in their hands. But where I get confused is that the reviews of the products don't start popping up until April and May. So if they got the product in February, not a single one of them reviewed the product until April? Late April, very late April. That's odd. That's suspicious because late April is when Ben and Susan decided that Susan was going to take over Naturium, that she wasn't going to pursue her own brand, but she was going to help with Naturium. That also happened in late April. So for me, what it seems like is that as Susan was talking to Ben from mid-March to late April, she's telling him, I have all these friends. Again, this is just my theory. I have all these friends that are in the skincare influencer space, and they all have huge followings. Let me get Naturium into their hands, right? Because it's not that easy to get an influencer to review your brand. You have to, a lot of times, get through their PR agency first in order to get their address, in order to get it into their hands. If Susan was friends with them, she would have known how to do that. Because the amount of PR that Hiram was getting at that time, I can only imagine. James Welsh, I can only imagine. Beauty Within, I can only imagine. You know what I'm saying? But they picked Naturium. They picked Naturium to promote in late April and May. And I personally believe it's because they had just gotten it in the mail a few weeks before while Susan was working very deeply with Naturium and Ben. I honestly, though, don't think that the influencers knew that Susan was involved. If that's true, that shows just how deeply ingrained Susan was in all of this when she was posting to her Facebook group and her YouTube channel in March and April.
There was also that vitamin C video. You mentioned it in one vitamin C video.
And that
is like
and
the
actually
video.
When you watch it and you hear what I'm saying, because I am not the owner and I didn't know the owner at the time very well, I am like truly saying what I like. It sounds like I'm a psychopath, like a pathological liar when you watch it, thinking that I already owned the brand.
Yeah.
Because that's crazy. But it actually seems crazy. I remember I saw somebody clip that and I was like, wow, that really does make me look like a crazy person.
So I DM'd Susan about this one, and this is the only one that she's actually answered me so far. So this is what she said. Basically, I was like, hey, you're saying here that when you filmed the vitamin C video that you didn't really know Ben very well, but your vitamin C video went live on April 28th, which is late April, which is when you said that you were talking to him about becoming a founder of Naturium.
So the earliest I could find Susan promoting her brand on YouTube was in this video on vitamin C serum recommendations launched on April 28th of 2020, where she features Naturium along with 3 other vitamin C serums.
Next up is this one by Naturium. It is their vitamin C serum 22%. What I like about this one is the vitamin C is encapsulated. So that means it's gonna be a little bit more gentle on the skin. I also think that there's a better formulation happening here. There's a little bit more technology happening. It's just a really wonderful formulation. I also just think this one's a very interesting one because I tend to not find such interesting formulations.
Second mention is the very next day when she talks about the Naturium niacinamide serum.
You need niacinamide. This is by Naturium. It is their niacinamide serum. It's 12% niacinamide plus 2% zinc. I really like this brand, Naturium. It's a newer brand that I've been using, but all of the serums are wonderful. This one specifically with the niacinamide in it feels really nice. It has hyaluronic acid in it. Also, what I like about these products by Naturium is that they are all pH appropriate, which is something that I think we're starting to become very aware of, is that we want products that are going to actually work on our skin. And when they're not at the right pH, they can either irritate our skin or they just don't work. And so you want to have the right pH for each of your products. So they list all the pH levels on their products. If you go to their website, it's really interesting. It feels really, really nice, absorbs quickly. Very good prices also for some really well thought out products by Naturium. We've done a really good job of making sure these are the best products that you can get.
So what do you mean you didn't know him very well? He's asking you to be the founder of his brand right around this time. So I'm very confused.
Fast forward to April, probably like end of April. And he says to me, now we know we're in lockdown. And now having a brand new D2C brand sounds like a terrible idea. So he says to me, you've already helped shape this brand. Like, we've already started making changes according to what you've told us, what you've shown us. He's like, I feel like this brand is starting to take on a true, like, it's starting to shape, like you're shaping it. Instead of working on 2 separate brands that are essentially conceptually like the same, why don't we just work on this one brand together?
This is what she said back. She said, Ben and I knew each other, but really just as industry colleagues. We had never had a serious conversation until lockdown started. When I started talking about the brand, I was giving him advice and sharing my perspective. Since it was a new brand and still small, they could be really nimble. For the vitamin C video, I shot it was before I ever talked to Ben. It just so happened to post in April, but even at that point, I didn't know I was going to be an owner. I'm sorry, what? What? So she's telling, so this is what I'm getting is she got the PR in February. So she was sitting on this video that she filmed for a month or 2, and she just happened to post it right around the time when Ben was saying she should be more involved with Naturium. Okay. I'm just saying that's very convenient. That's weird. And the other piece is the Zoom call that she had with Leah Yu. Leah is a skincare brand owner herself. And when Susan reached out for the Zoom call, they were talking about the line and the products that Susan had chosen to be in the line. Here's the clip.
Well, if you notice, there's a lot of focus on retinol and vitamin C because those are my 2
Yes.
I signed my agreement, my formal agreement, just a couple weeks ago.
So this makes it sound like the vitamin C serum was not only something that Susan advised on, but was her idea. And if it was her idea, then this would have been an idea she presented way before mid-March. Because it takes a while for products to go into development. So it's possible she just outright lied to Leah in this moment. Either that or she's lying about when she got close with Ben. It's one or the other. I went to the Wayback Machine to check out the Naturium website to see if I could see what it looked like at launch. And the earliest screenshot I can find is from March of 2020. And it looks like there were, I think, 3 or 4 different vitamin C products at the time. So it was a very vitamin C heavy line. And Susan told Leah that that was her choice to do that. But then she also only started working with Ben in mid-March and the line launched in February. See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? I just don't like inconsistencies like this. Let's just call them inconsistencies. They make my brain confused and irritated.
But like, how are you really going to tell everybody this? Because this is not what they wanted to hear. The better story was what everybody else wanted, right?
That you were being deceitful.
I felt bad for my friends, and I understood that they needed a moment to, like, when it all came crashing down, they needed a moment. Yeah. And again, it was a real big learning lesson for me. Again, I felt really bad, mostly for my friends. You know,
Yeah.
I felt bad for what I did to them, and that was pretty terrible to deal with. I think that's what I sat with the most.
I'm honestly not sure what she means here by her friends and what she did to them. What I can imagine this means is that I do know that when all of this went down, the people that she had sent PR to were accused of being a part of the plot, were accused of being in on it and lying and promoting Susan's brand, knowing that it was her brand. And I think that might be what she's apologizing for here. And again, just to reiterate, I don't think that they knew. I genuinely don't. So at this point, they start wrapping things up. But this is when my blood started boiling. And it actually doesn't even have anything to do with Susan. It's Kirbie. It is possibly one of the worst possible messages to put out there in 2024. It's anti-education, it's anti-awareness, and I hate it with my entire soul.
Anybody listening to this, I hope that you guys truly, what I did is I actually started reading less on the internet. I stopped trying to know everything about everyone. I found, to your point, Susan, it was actually causing me to not be myself and to hold back because I was afraid of saying something and then having people be like, well, do you know that that person does this? And now, honestly, even though I am a reporter and I'm supposed to know a lot of things, I'm like, I did not know that about that person. I didn't know the personal life of that person when I'm talking about a brand founder or whatever.
Right. Well, I mean, gosh, how can you do your job if you start digging into what every single person that you interview is doing or whose brand you're using or who you're watching on TV? It's just, you're always going to find something because we're human beings.
Yeah.
We're human beings.
So I do get this. I mean, I don't know who made this microphone. I don't know their politics. I don't know who made my camera. I don't know their politics. Like, you can't research everything. But to purposely ignore when you learn about something, I don't support that. I don't support that because just because you ignore it doesn't mean it didn't happen. You know what I'm saying? It's giving conscious ignorance. Not a fan, but it gets worse, actually.
And people make mistakes and then, you know, some of us do bad things. And if we try to correct, if at all possible, I think
I played this clip for my husband and he was like, what did she say there that they cut out? She must have said something real off for them to abruptly cut her like that. Like, what did she say? I don't know, but I wonder what she said because, like I said, it gets worse.
that it would benefit everyone to just, you can scroll on TikTok, you can engage in an Instagram photo or whatever you want to do, or please comment on Reels, please. But
Please, we need the engagement.
Reels, do it. But I don't think doing these deep dives of every single thing that this person has ever done or said is really, especially when you don't know them, it's giving stalker, it's giving weird. I truly feel like I am better not having.
I am too.
I knowing less.
I could be reading too much into this because sometimes I make about myself that is not about myself, but I did take this as a personal attack. Absolutely 100% did. But even if it was not a personal attack, I feel like as a journalist,
To say that you feel better not knowing factual information is problematic. In 2024, the last thing we need as a society is less truthful information. And to say deep dives are giving stalker. I'm sorry, but what? Are you kidding me? You are a journalist. The entire point of this entire profession is to find information and present it to the public. That's the point of the whole profession. Our documentary stalker behavior? How about Dateline? How about 2020? How about 60 Minutes? Are they all stalkers? Because that's essentially what they're doing, is they don't know the serial killer that they are creating a documentary on or creating a deep dive on their news channels. They don't know them personally, and they're digging into the details to find all the facts and present it to the public. Are they stalkers? Is that stalker behavior? So as someone who values deep dives and values truth and values honesty and transparency in the media, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say absolutely freaking not. I'm going to say no to putting my fingers in my ears. I'm going to say no to putting my head in the sand. I'm going to say no to not listening to a situation because it is an inconvenience, because maybe it might make you turn against somebody that you like when you find out who they really are. I'm going to say no to doing that. I'm going to say yes to finding out who people really are and not ignoring that just because it's inconvenient. Uncovering the truth of a situation is not giving stalker, it's giving transparency, it's giving facts, and it's important. I understand that we can only digest so much negative, and for our mental health, sometimes we need to step away from the news for a little bit and get ourselves together. But to advocate for not even reporting on things at all, to advocate against giving that information is horrible. That is the worst take. Because just because you pretend something isn't happening doesn't mean it's not actually happening. Think about all the things that must have happened to people before there was cell phones to record situations. Think about before body cameras. Are we going to say that that stuff just didn't happen because there wasn't a camera there? Even if I didn't make this video or my video in 2020, Susan'd still be a liar. She lied to somebody because helping with formulation and choosing the products before Naturium launched and only contacting him in March to see if he'll invest in a brand that failed, that cannot be true at the same time. She lied to somebody. And me saying it or not saying is not going to change the fact that there is a lie there somewhere. And I understand she's your friend. I understand you don't want her to get hurt, but she's a liar. And if you ignore it, that doesn't mean it didn't happen. Something is not adding up in Susan's story. It doesn't change the fact that she lied to and manipulated her audience into buying products that she was connected to without telling them that she was connected to them for her own personal gain, for her own financial gain. She did that. She did that. There's evidence to show that she did that. And just because someone doesn't do a deep dive on it or report on it doesn't mean it didn't happen. I'm fired up. I'm sorry. Absolutely no. 0 out of 10. 0 out of 10, no. Instead, as a journalist, we should be all about facts and truth, getting to the bottom of something, putting it together so that people can know what happened, and then letting people decide what they think based on the facts that we know. That's where we should be as journalists, and I would think we would be able to agree on that, but it seems like we can't. And in the words of Hannah Alonso, that's disgusting, and I hate it. Okay, I'm going to breathe now because they now wrap up the podcast and that part's over and we go back to Susan speaking directly to the camera.
I want to make sure you know, I don't think I was faultless in the situation. I definitely think there were things I could have done better, and I apologize for that because I really should have been the bigger person in the situation. I do want to remind everybody, I am a human being and I'm a defensive human being. I fight for myself a lot. It's just who I am. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right thing. But when I look back, that's probably how I was feeling in that whole situation.
What's interesting about this is it seems like her being a bigger person thing here was about the conflicts that she had with the people that didn't like her on Facebook. And it seems like that's what she's talking about as her big mistake, which is weird.
When I took a step back from that situation, because really in the heat of the moment, it felt like my career was ending. It felt like I had just done such a stupid thing. It was so stupid, really, because I could have handled it in such a better way. But instead, sometimes I'm just so stubborn. I don't know why. This is who I am. I don't know why. I could have probably handled it in a much better way.
This is so vague. This is so vague. What is it? What did you do? What is the thing that you do that you're apologizing for? You broke FTC guidelines. You manipulated your audience. You didn't tell them the truth. You financially gained from lying to them. That's the problem. Why are we not saying that? Why didn't we say that through this whole podcast?
And when I took a step back and then came back to social media to just see where it was, pick up all the pieces, I realized I had underestimated my community. And that was such a huge mistake, because when I started to really pay attention, I noticed I had all of these loving messages, these supportive messages in my DMs, in my comments, in my Facebook group, on my YouTube videos. There were all these people that were saying to me, I support you still. Whatever it is that happened, there seems to be something more to this. Or even if I don't fully understand what happened, I'm so excited for you. I'm so excited that you are accomplishing your dreams. You're doing what you wanted to do, and you're putting out this amazing skincare brand. There were just all these incredible messages. And it was really hard to understand this, because you can't help but focus on the negativity. But in reality, there was a lot of support.
This is the saddest part of the whole thing to me. And it's that she's absolutely right here, because there were a lot of people in her audience. There were people in my comment section of my video, people all over, that legit did not care about being lied to. Legit did not care that she broke FTC guidelines. Didn't care. Which is fine. Valid opinion. I mean, you have an absolute right to not care about being lied to and manipulated. That is your right. But it's also important to recognize that it is the right of people to be upset about being lied to and manipulated. Both are very valid perspectives.
When I really, really paid attention to it, my first thought was, why didn't I just talk to everybody? Why didn't I? And I still, to this day, it's a regret that I should have just talked to my community and just said what was happening. And I, to this day, will always remember that. This is the biggest lesson that I learned from this, was that I have a community and they will listen to me. And if you're just honest, even if you feel scared about it, even if you feel trapped, even if you feel like it's just going to be turned around, just say it. Because that's what everybody wants. They just want to know what happened.
I think she didn't talk to people because I think that she knew that she had been deceitful. I think she knew that she had manipulated them in order to get ahead in business and didn't want people to know that. But then she realized that there were people that legit didn't care. So then she wraps up the video and the video is over. So let me go ahead and do my conclusion. I'm going to put you back on the stand. And I'm hoping that the audio was fine for this, because I'm not used to holding the microphone and I don't know if it sounded like doo-doo. If it did, I will fix it for next time. I apologize. Okay, so I promised you a conclusion of what I think actually happened based on what I know. I was not there. I do not know 100% for sure. And like I mentioned, it is really important that you decide what makes sense to you and don't just go off of what I'm saying here as being the absolute 100% fact. This is just my opinion based on what I know about the situation. I don't think I'm ever going to know 100% what happened, because when people don't tell the truth, you never really know. So this is what I think happened. First thing is that Susan knew Ben way before Naturium launched. That's what I believe. I think she knew him way before October of 2019 when they had the soft launch. And I think that she was giving him advice about the brand way before. I think that that part that she was saying to Leah is probably true. But I don't think that it was a super close relationship. I think she was just kind of off the cuff giving him advice about different things. Like maybe that vitamin C is really hot and popular right now. Retinol is really hot and popular right now. You may want to focus on those things. Like that may have been the extent of it. So this must have happened sometime probably mid 2019, early 2019, because remember they had the soft launch in October 2019. So it had to have happened, at least 4 to 6 months before then, because you can't just like have an idea for a product and magically it appears. There's formulation, there's a production process, there's all of that has to happen. So it had to have happened pretty early, mid 2019 when she was telling him about this. It's either that or she lied to Leah. So in February 2020, Ben sent his business acquaintance Susan PR of the new products that she advised him on. At the same time, that contract manufacturer that Susan was working with to start her own brand says, absolutely not, we're not going to do it. And she loses the funding for her cosmetic line. So she's got to go find new funding. So she reaches out to Ben. She maybe reaches out to other people, but that's when she really starts talking to Ben, is when that falls through. So by mid-March, Susan and Ben are best buds. They're talking every single day. day. This is when I feel like Susan became directly involved in the direction of Naturium as a brand, that she started giving advice and Ben started really following that advice. Maybe there wasn't a formal contract, but in my opinion, she was really advising at this point in time. I think Susan did this because she was courting him to be an investor in her brand. She's trying to prove her worth. She's trying to show him, hey, I know about this stuff. I know what to do in order to sell your brand. And one of the things she knew was people in the skincare industry. So at this point, I believe that Susan gave Ben the contact information for all of the top skincare influencers in the industry. And by mid-April, she is promoting Naturium to her Facebook group. By the end of April, she is promoting it to her YouTube audience. This is where the FTC violation happens. This is where the deceit happens. This is where she uses her audience for personal and professional and financial gain. Because if she can prove to Ben that she can make him money, then she has a better chance of having him as a business partner for her own brand. And in order to do that, she had to convince her followers to purchase the products. And that's the problem. That's the issue, is because she didn't disclose that personal relationship or that she was possibly financially invested in the future of Naturium. If not the future of Naturium, a financial investment in Ben possibly investing in her own brand. There was a money thing here that she should have disclosed. So then the glowing reviews start. Susan's glowing reviews from all of the skincare influencers across the internet. And I'm assuming sales started going nuts for these products. And Ben probably sitting there like, holy crap, Susan, look what you did. Like, wow, and look how much we've sold thanks to you. Thanks, Susan. Hey, that skincare brand you're talking about? I don't think we should do that because it's basically the same thing as Naturium. So can we just do Naturium together? Because look what you're doing with all these sales that she's not disclosing to the people that she's involved with the brand. And this is when Susan starts getting really excited about the potential of really being a part of Naturium and having Naturium be her brand. But she says at this point, she was not the founder, but she clearly had a very strong professional relationship. So at this point, that's when she pauses and she stops talking about Naturium on her social channels because her lawyers probably told her to stop doing that because now they're trying to figure out how to get Naturium underneath in Susan's hands formally as the founder. So I'm assuming the lawyers advised her to stop. But what didn't stop was the influencer reviews that kept going through May and into June, when in early June, she signed on the dotted line and Naturium was hers. But then this is when things start brewing behind the scenes and when people on Facebook start doing all the digging and they start thinking, well, maybe Susan is the one behind Naturium. Again, her whole story about exactly how that went down is in her full-length video. But people on Facebook start figuring this out and then they find out from a reporter that yes, Susan is the founder of this brand and they go to the press. The press is about to release an article. So Susan had to come out with a video saying that it was her brand. But this is the thing, because Susan says that this was not the time when she wanted to tell people, that she wanted to hold on to that and enjoy her brand just a little bit longer before she told people that it was her brand. But she had also said that she felt like if people knew it was an influencer brand, it would cheapen the brand. It would make it seem less valid, less credible as a good quality, high quality skincare line. So it's possible that Susan, if not pressured by the people on Facebook, maybe never would have told us that she was involved in Naturium, possibly, because she could have just never said that information. But we don't know, and we will never know whether Susan ever intended to tell us that she was behind Naturium and if she would have continued promoting the products as if she wasn't involved. So she knows she needs to come out and say that it's her brand. So she quickly gets on the Zoom call. She talks to the influencer. She tells them that it's her brand. They get all excited and she does these little mini interviews with them about the products. She posts her announcement video that she is the founder of the brand on June 21st. Then the internet, including myself, freaks out because we realize that she has clearly broken FTC rules by promoting Naturium without disclosing that she was financially or personally involved with the brand. And that was when I reached out to Susan. That was the same day that she ended up posting her apology video. And in the apology video, she tries to clarify the timeline that she had just become the founder a couple of weeks ago, which again, is irrelevant because she still had a personal professional relationship with Ben way before she signed on the dotted line. The root of all of this is that she did not tell her audience that she was personally and professionally benefiting from the sale of those products. That's what it comes down to. That when she made those posts, she had a personal and financial agenda, and that was not thinking about the customers, that was only thinking about herself. And that's the issue that I have with it, and the issue that I have with this podcast, in that she never talked about that. She never addressed that. She never talks about learning from that situation. So what she could have said, in my opinion, on the podcast that I think would have been really good and shown growth and learning and understanding would have been something like, so in April, when I was promoting the products on Facebook and on YouTube, I was working behind the scenes with Ben on Naturium. And what I didn't realize was that that was breaking FTC guidelines and that I needed to disclose that. And I should have disclosed that. I should have told people that I was working behind the scenes on Naturium at that point. And I didn't do that. But now I've learned, and I'm not going to do that again. I understand that transparency is important, and I value that. I value transparency and I value honesty. And I was thinking at the time that people wouldn't buy it if they knew it was my brand, and I was wrong. I should have trusted my audience that they would want to buy it if they knew it was my brand. So that was a mistake that I made, and I'm not going to doubt my audience ever again. Oh my gosh, growth. How amazing would that have been? Very easy to do, but instead she dances around it again. And I don't understand why, because like I said in the first video, it's really not that big of a deal when it comes down to it. Like if you're comparing Susan to blatant racism, to sexting minors, I mean, this is nothing compared to what some other beauty industry brand owners have done. I mean, this is like a drop in the pan. This is nothing. But I think it's the fact that she keeps lying about it that just grinds my gears and makes me want to create videos like this, because it'd be so easy to just be honest and just be like, look, I messed up. I learned. I'm done. Like, I don't understand. I don't get it. But anyway, at this point, I would love to know what you think about the situation. What do you think about the information I presented? What do you think about the podcast? Do you think I'm off base? Do you think that I've hit it right? I would love to know any and all thoughts down in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Helps me out a lot. And if you would like to hang out just a little bit longer because you want to watch more videos, I'm going to put a couple videos for you over here to watch. On the bottom, I'm going to put the Jaclyn Hill version of this video when we talked about the hairy lipsticks. That's going to go down there. YouTube's going to pick the top video based on videos you've been watching recently on the platform. But if you have to go, I get it. It is no problem at all. Thank you for hanging out as long as you did, and mad love to you. And I will see you in a video very, very soon.